Hey guys, it's Ashton with Oakland Roots, and today I will be walking you through the process of potting up your seedlings. We have several that are getting pretty big in their seed trays and are needing that extra room for their roots. So I will be walking you through that process. It's a pretty simple process. It's just there's little tips and tricks that we've learned as we went, so we thought that would be helpful for you. A lot of times you will not need to pot them up unless you're starting them way early. Like a lot of times you would take your seedlings straight from the seed tray and put it into the ground. But if they're either started too early, or if it's like a lot of times people will pot up tomato plants so that they're bigger by the time they get them in the ground. For those reasons, those are some examples of why you would want to pot them up. In our case, since we have the greenhouse, we're potting them up so that we can get them sold and to you all this spring. Right now, the greenhouse is pretty warm. It's a little overcast today, so it's not as warm as it has been, but the nights are staying mild enough that most of the seedlings we're transplanting today are cold hardy or perennials, so they should be fine in the cooler temperatures, and that also helps them to harden off. They've been in my cool basement from the start, so that helps, but if you have them in a really warm room, it might be good to not put them straight into a greenhouse if you have one, or not put them straight outside, but introduce them to the cooler temperatures a little bit at a time. Today I will be transplanting African blue disc daisy, foxglove, bachelor buttons, and also we have already done the ornamental kale, which I did a little video on that, and then we also did our sweet peas, so I will update you on those, but we have already got those done. We're kind of doing this a little bit out of order, but that's just kind of how it goes when you got a crazy busy life. So I will show you, I will give you a tour of the seedlings we have downstairs, and then I will also show you the ornamental kale and the sweet peas. Let's get started. Real quick, I will give you an update tour on our seedlings and how they are doing. This tray is absolutely amazing. You can see over here on the right that nothing really came up, and it seems like this year all of the seeds were either all or nothing. I mean, they either came up and looked super healthy, or they did not come up at all. So that's, I don't know why, and I need to look into that, and maybe the seed packets were old. I don't really know, but this whole tray right here really needs to be transplanted, and I will probably try to do that today. But here we have African daisy blue disc. I mean, look how huge and pretty those are. This is my first year using grow lights, and so far I have been so impressed. I just ordered a bunch more actually, because our biggest seed planting will be here in the next week or so, so we needed more space than we already had. The next one we have is Gallardia, and again, I mean, it's really thick and pretty, and they didn't get leggy at all. And then we have Gallardia lollipop and foxglove. So these foxglove were teeny tiny seeds, and when they sprouted they were just really little, and they have grown so much. They're so pretty. I cannot wait to get these planted. Then we'll move over here. So this entire tray is kind of an experiment. These are all baker seeds, and I have strawberry, which only 2 teeny tiny little seedlings came up out of my strawberries. And then I have Naranja, and most of those came up. I just have one little pod that didn't. And we have pomegranate. So this is a decorative pomegranate, and all but one of those came up too. And they are not cold hardy, so it'll be something that we have to bring into the house. But I thought it would be really interesting to do for cut flower arrangements. Then we have Goji berry, Huckleberry, and Tamarillo. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but there's a few little ones of those. And then the huckleberries are just exploding. I probably planted these maybe 2 weeks ago, and they are absolutely huge. I need to get those out too. Then you can see that we have quite a bit of growth in this tray. There is one right here. There's a few little ones, but this is the straw flower tall double, and it did not come up as well. And then I have a type of coreopsis in the back that hasn't come up. And here you can tell these are the trays that I just planted recently. Here we have several different varieties, and this entire tray came up really well. You can see that some grow better than others. Ideally, you would want to put all of the same type of plant in the same tray. That way they sprout at the same time. You can transplant at the same time. But with as many as we plant, that's not really an option. So we kind of just wing it. So in this tray, petunias are usually really hard to grow. But last year we did these Petunia spellbounds. And we did a pink variety, and this year we bought all 4 types that they have because they had these huge leaves and just beautiful, huge flowers with striping in the center. And I cannot believe how many of these have come up. Like I said, I mean, they're really hard and they're so dainty. They're real finicky about what you do, but they have done so well. And then back here, we have some seed geraniums. Then if we move to here, so if anybody has any advice on this, I would love to hear. But these are my snapdragons, this entire tray. And I don't know if it was from overwatering or what, but the ones in the center did terrible. I mean, they all sprouted, but then they get these little, the tips of their leaves turn brown and they just kind of curled up. And even on the big ones, they still have brown tips. So I don't know what I did on those, but whatever it was not good. You can tell the edges did a lot better than the center for some reason. But we still have some, and we will probably end up putting most of the ones that survive in our cut flower garden and trying that out. Over here we have a few different, I think they are Hollyhocks. And then I had a type of sweet pea that I put in the center that did not come up. And you can tell in this tray it has got a lot of algae growing on top. So that is something that if you add vermiculite when you plant the seeds, it can help prevent that. So that's a learning experience for next year. And then we have a few different sweet peas left. The seedlings that were the biggest so far had been the ornamental kale and the sweet pea tray. And I've already taken those over to the greenhouse to transplant. So that's why those are not here. And then here we have a very few little bit of lemongrass. They did not come up very well, and the ones that have are not growing very fast. This tray has been planted a long time ago. Then we have some carnations, and then these are Rudbeckia. So they're doing pretty good. Again, they're kind of sporadic, but I'll take what I can get. And this section right here is Salvia, and these trays kind of sink into the center. So the outside is the first to dry out, and I hadn't noticed that this tray was drying out, and you can tell that the salvia kind of bit the dust. It got a little too dry. I don't know that we can revive any of those. And then over here we have yarrow and calendula. And then we have, there's 4 different varieties of lavender, but only 2 came up. There might be, yep, there's one little guy over there and one in this one, but for some reason those 2 varieties did not do very well, but the other 2 did great, so I'm excited to see. Here we have Impatiens, and we out of the 6 rows we have like 3 plants. Oh no, maybe they're coming up. They might just be taking a little longer, but those haven't done so well so far, but maybe I'm just being impatient. And then these 3 sections are all dahlias. We did these little dahlias last year and they turned out so cute. They're not as big as your traditional dahlia, but they look so pretty in a pot. And then over here we have more hollyhocks. The Indian hollyhock, oh, we got one, and that's it out of both of those rows. Oh, there might be another little one coming up there. But the Zebrina and the, oh, nope, just Zebrina. The Zebrina did okay. I mean, the back half looks like it's pretty good. The front half, for some reason, did not germinate. Again, this is learning for all of us. This entire tray is Dianthus, and I have mixed feelings about Dianthus. They're beautiful, and they usually end up being pretty healthy plants. But their seedlings get so spindly and leggy no matter what you do. And again, if anybody has any tips or tricks on that, I think they'll be fine once we pot them up and kind of pot them deeper than what they are. But they are all just like super leggy and super like delicate. So we'll see. I'll use up my seed. I don't know how often I will end up planting these from seed, but it's an experience. Here we have bachelor button, and these guys are huge. Let's see if we can get it from, see how tall they are. I mean, these are massive, and they're definitely ready to transplant. There's a few here on the end that, again, I did not water enough, and I think they might come through, but I tend to get a little busy and then forget about my plants. It happens to us all. We have a very few delphinium here, and then we have 2 little mask flower. That's a new one to me. Those seeds were given to us, and they are baker seeds, but I've never grown that, so we've got 2 to experiment with, and we have 1 bee balm back there. And for our final tray, we have more Dianthus, along with some coneflower, which those didn't germinate real well, but this half was all the ornamental kale, and I planted 72 of those in 3 different colors, and every single seed sprouted. That is just amazing. I mean, you rarely see that, so I'm very excited for those. I will have those in the video later, transplanting them into bigger pots. But again, these Dianthus are a lot bigger than the others, but they are still like super spindly and delicate, so hopefully they will thicken as we get them repotted. I talked about this a little bit in the seed starting video, but for my seedlings, I will typically put a heat mat under them and the propagation dome when they're first planted, and then as soon as 50 to 75% of the seedlings have sprouted, I'll remove the humidity dome and remove the heat mat to keep them from dampening off, and then from there they will go under the grow lights, which for mine, the way it's set up, they started under the grow lights, and some seeds need more light than others to sprout, so just be aware of that and look on your seed packet. And then once they start to sprout, they'll go under the grow light. And then we also have 2 fans blowing on them from different directions. That way they are constantly exposed to wind-like conditions, and that helps keep them stronger and not quite as leggy as well. While we're here at the greenhouse, I thought I would do a little update on our winter sowing method. And so far, I have not been impressed. 2 weeks ago, we had like negative 14-degree temperatures, and I don't know if that'll even focus, but we'll try. But so far we have a whole lot of nothing. We did have ornamental kale, but you can kind of, I don't know if you can see, but those actually sprouted and then they died back after it got cold. So it might have got too cold too late in the season for these, but so far there is absolutely nothing going on. So I've been hesitant. Maybe I'm just being impatient, but I've been hesitant to plant anymore because I'm afraid that either I didn't do something right or this method is just not going to work for me. First, I will walk you through my process using the foxglove, and then I will speed it up for the rest of the varieties. So what you need your seedlings, you need some sort of garden marker, which for these I use these hard plastic tabs, and they seem to work really good. And then you will need either a Sharpie or a pencil. For some reason, pencil seems to stick really good, and I recommend using, these are extreme fade resistant Sharpies. Last year we used just regular Sharpie, and it did fade pretty bad by the time we got them sold. So you'll need a pencil or a Sharpie, and then one of my favorite tools is a screwdriver to pop the seedlings out. And then you will need your pots. For these we will be using 4-inch pots, and then you will also need your soil, which I recommend. For us, we're doing it in bulk. So we are using a mineral tub with the soil inside, but I would recommend getting it in something bigger than the bag. That way you can really mix it up, and it's a lot easier to take your pot and just scoop out than it is inside the bag. So that's just a little trick we learned last year And something that we will not do again because it took us forever to try to soften it inside the bag and then dip the cup in, and we'd break the cup, so it was just a total mess. So I do recommend getting a big bucket or something so you can mix the soil up a little better. I like to do it in a assembly line way. So the first thing I will do is I will count how many seedlings I have, and then I will write out all of the tags. You will notice as I pop these out that there are several of these plugs that have more than one plant in there. And if they have one that's really strong and one that's really weak, I will probably just snip the weaker one, which that just kills Mom and I to do because we see the potential of a plant. And it's really hard to do, but it will help the other one grow healthier. And if there's two pretty strong ones in the same cell, I will probably try to split those up and plant them in different pots. So I will also show you that as we go. The next step is to fill our pots with soil. Before I forget, one more trick that I learned from last year is that it is okay to wait until the seedlings are pretty large. We got a little worried last year that they'd get so root bound that they wouldn't survive when we transplanted. So we were transplanting these tiny little dainty seedlings, and honestly I think that was harder on them than waiting. I think the rule of thumb is that you wait until they at least have their second set of true leaves. So I mean, these are definitely ready to go, but it's not going to hurt them to get this big and strong, and it makes your life so much easier when you're transplanting, when you have a strong seedling to work with. This is a trick I learned from another greenhouse owner, that to make the holes for your plugs, you can use the other end of your Sharpie, and it's wide enough and the soil's loose enough that it is perfect to work in there, and just make a little hole big enough for that plug to rest down in. Now it's time to pop the plants out of their cells and put them in the soil. This is my favorite tool to use because if you use a flathead screwdriver, it slips down beside the plant without damaging anything, and then you can pry it out of the pod. I've also heard people using a butter knife, and there are all different kinds of methods, but this is my preferred method of choice. So we are going to just slip this down the very edge, run it all the way down to the bottom along the edge of the cell, and then just pop that out. And then you have your nice little plug. So this one actually has 3 plants in it, and 2 of them are very strong, and one of them, this one right here, is a little smaller. So I'm going to take some scissors and just snip that smallest one off, and then very gently I am going to pull the 2 of these apart and just very gently work and pull the roots apart. And there you go. Now you have 2 very healthy plants. So then you will just set that in there. The less you can disturb the roots, the better. Some of them, it's very hard. So then once you set it down in the hole, just pack it around and you're good to go. A lot of times you'll find that on these plants that have really tiny seeds, that's when you get, like this one has 5 plants in there. So it's usually the ones that have the tiny seeds that you will get way too many plants. So this is only 10 pots, but these 10 pots came from 7 different cells, and I clipped 5 different plants. So you can definitely extend how many plants you get from your cells if you plant at least 2 seeds per pod. So the last step is to take your tags and put these in there. I highly recommend immediately putting your tags in the pots, especially before you move on to the next variety, or you will forget what's what. No matter how much you think you won't, you will. Okay, there we have it. And then we will probably include the video on these, just speed that up a little bit, or I may just show you the finished product after they're done. While I'm transplanting, my business partner, aka my mom, is behind the scenes laying some weed barrier, and our helper Danny, she's wanting us to play the whole time. But we are getting this weed barrier laid so that it is not a muddy mess in here this year like it was last year. So I really messed up after we transplanted our kale. I was so excited to get it done, and it was late in the evening, and I was so excited to just have some greenery in the greenhouse. And I got the heater all set up on them so that they wouldn't get too cold, and didn't think anything of it. Went to work the next day, came home the next afternoon, and I had failed to think about the fact that it gets like 90 plus degrees in here in the daytime. So here they are. Here, some of them will probably not make it. You can tell the stronger seedlings did better, but I did not turn the fan on or get the windows open because I never even thought about that. They've been used to my cooler basement temperatures, and definitely had a few that will not make it. For the most part, they did pretty good, but definitely eliminated our weakest seedlings, and that's okay. These things happen. That's part of gardening. A lot of times gardening is not our number one priority, so life gets into the way, and we just have to accept what happens and move on and learn from our mistakes. Also, here are some of the sweet peas that we planted. I will probably take like a little dowel rod and poke into the pot to stake those up, and then I will also pinch off the top. You can tell they've already got little shoots coming out the side, so if you pinch this top part off, it'll encourage them to branch out. And for these, we are using them in the cut flower garden, so the more branches they have, the more flowers we'll be able to use. Here's our sweet peas, and then we have a few more over here. And we have one variety left to transplant. We are so excited to finally have our benches back up. We got weed barrier laid down below, and it seems like forever since we've had any kind of structure in here over the winter. We are excited to have both plants and a little bit of structure and the weed barrier down for this year. I hope you enjoyed this video of how we go about transplanting our seeds into bigger pots. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below or shoot us a message on our Facebook page. We would love to help you out. If you have any questions on anything garden related or any suggestions on videos you'd like to see, you can comment that below as well. Thank you for joining us today. We will see you in the next one. Bye.